We also see how the leader of the country is demonized when he is targeted by U.S. policy. Gaddafi of Libya, whose actual sin was to nationalize the oil industry in Libya and begin to take the earnings from it and spend it on the people in column B, on things like reforestation and health and education and clinics, rather than giving it all to the people in column A. Gaddafi, a Hitlerite megalomaniac, a pathological liar. Libya is now the object of sanctions. Noriega of Panama, a swamp rat, one of the world's worst drug thieves and scums. That was Peter Jennings on ABC said that one. I'm quoting Dan Rather's, Peter Jennings, Tom Brokaw here, a Hitlerite admirer. Saddam Hussein, the butcher of Baghdad, a madman, a beast, worse than Hitler. Do you remember George Bush? George Bush was saying that about him. Saddam Hussein is worse than Hitler. You know, that dynamic, fiery way he has. So you go, Georgie, do it to me. Oh, wow, you just set me on fire, Georgie. You just... There was a very cruel feminist who said once that George Bush reminds every woman of her first husband. I guess that means, you know, the one you sort of should marry, who has all the proper credentials, and he's kind of, instead of the one with the improper credentials that you really want to be with, maybe. But you know, I thought it was very funny. George Bush reminds every woman of her first husband. Then I started thinking about it, you know. So I called up my ex-wife. I said, do I remind you of George Bush in any way? She said, what are you talking about? So I felt much better, you know. Well, you know, we all have our moments of insecurity, you know. Now we have Milosevic, described as a new Hitler by Bill Clinton, called him a new Hitler. Bill Clinton learns his lessons well. Listen to the New York Times. The New York Times did there's a couple of paragraphs of psychobiography they had on Milosevic, and I want to read it. The people who write for the New York Times are very brilliant. Ooh, they're so brilliant, the New York Times people. They must be because they think so themselves, you know, and so it must be true. So I want to read this brilliant passage from the New York Times. And they're from New York, don't forget. Hey, I'm from New York, but I'm really not brilliant. If I were, I'd be writing for the New York Times. Milosevic. As a youth, Mr. Milosevic was a pudgy loner. See, now, being a loner in the American political lexicon, this is obvious evidence of psychopathology, and you're an assassin, obviously, you know. Lee Harvey Oswald was a loner. He may have been a loner, he was no assassin. Timothy McVeigh, the kid who shot Ronald Reagan, what was his name? Hinkle, I forget. A loner. They all call a loner. Oh, they were loners. They all have friends and family, but they call a loner. It's a loner, that's for sure. Oh. But Milosevic, you know, was a very specially serious case because he was a pudgy loner. See, now, pudginess is un-American. I mean, I don't think so. I think pudginess isn't bad at all, but pudginess is un-American. Now, if Milosevic, though, if he was a lean loner, that would be bad too. So it's best not to be either pudgy or lean. Let me read this whole quote to you, take it from the top again. As a youth, Mr. Milosevic was a pudgy loner. That's 2 strikes, pudgy loner. Who shunned sports, strike 3. And wrote poetry, strike 4. Oh, mommy, strike 4. Does anyone need any further proof that here was a psychotic killer nerd? The Times goes on. Today, Milosevic is often described in Serbian profiles as reclusive and moody. His country's being bombed into the ground. He's moody. With few friends. Yeah, a lot of them are dead. Though in public appearances and interviews, he can be as effusive and happy as a door-to-door salesman. Fascinating. Isn't it fascinating? So we have an effusive, reclusive salesman type. Even the managing editor of Foreign Affairs, the most establishment of journals we have, the managing editor notes, quote, Milosevic, who rules an impoverished country that has not attacked its neighbors, is no Adolf Hitler. He is not even Saddam Hussein. And it's pretty bad when Foreign Affairs starts sounding good, you know? It really makes you realize where your own where our media, they're not our media, where their media really are at.